Welcome back to HipMojo's lightning round and the email of the week. So first subject matter is they say that interactive advertising is going to match TV by 2016. I always laugh at these studies and surveys, but what do you think? Is that going to happen or are they delusional?
I don't think it's delusional at all. I think television is actually going to become more interactive. Like, for God's sakes, we're getting smart televisions just like we have smartphones. I think what's important is we have to start distinguishing between television as a distribution platform and television as a content format. And that's really the important thing. So it's not so much that it's going to surpass it. The two are really going to converge and become one and the same. So you'll end up with interactive TV ads.
Yeah, I actually agree. I think that line is going to blur and people aren't going to buy so much internet versus web. I think they're going to buy like, okay, we're getting the Fox American Idol, we're going to spend $1 million for it and that comes with it. But these studies, just take them with a grain of salt. I mean, I've just simply gone crazy in Excel and I've basically proven that video ads are going to surpass search by 2018 and that online ads are going to surpass all TV ads by 2021. It's really just going crazy and you can support whatever you want, basically, is what I'm saying. Take it with a grain of salt.
Next question, Brightcove files for IPO. What do you think?
Well, I think, okay, it's not a good time at the macro level if you take into consideration that a lot of other internet companies like Zynga are pulling their IPOs. But the reality is Brightcove is actually in a unique situation. According to Paid Content, who dissected their numbers, they have about $24.6 million of cash and equivalents on their balance sheet, which gives them about 12 months worth of run rate. So they sort of have to either IPO or raise further financing, which could mean a lot of dilution for the founders and VCs, which they probably don't want to do. However, I think even though it might make sense for a lot of other companies to shelve the IPO, I think a lot of investors would probably be interested in Brightcove because if there's any one bellwether for online video, it's Brightcove. Now, you could say Brightcove or Uyala, which one is the better bellwether for online video? I don't have access to Uyala's numbers because they have not filed to go public. But right now, I think part of the appeal for Brightcove's VCs is let's go to market, let's go to the IPO, do it faster. We are a perfect sort of representation of online video, which investors probably want to invest in. Next question, Justin Timberlake is going to take MySpace. He invested along with Specific Media. He wants to change it basically into music space. He wants to focus on music and basically compete with Vivo, YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, and all of these very sexy and in the news and very, is it crazy? I mean, should you be spending any money on music and MySpace?
I think Justin Timberlake should really stick to trying to shtup Mila Kunis in romantic comedies. Okay, he can act and he's decent at it and he makes catchy music. That doesn't mean he knows anything about technology or even necessarily anything about marketing. I think it's a bad move. Another celebrity trying to expand into business. If he was smart and he really wanted to do this, he'd do it on the down low and put his money behind it. The fact that he's putting his face on front of it, it's just a publicity stunt for him. If it works out, he looks awesome. If it starts going bad, he can just walk away.
Two things, just to clarify. He did put his money, but he's also putting his face there. And I think Justin Timberlake's term sheet to invest in WatchMojo just went up in flames. I'm kidding. Next question.
So Google spent $225 million on Slide last year. Smart talent technology acquisition or gross negligence?
Well, it goes negligence because they shut Slide down and all its products this year. I mean, I think Max Levchin is a very smart guy. The fact that he was always trying to make Slide be worth more than PayPal, the previous company he was involved with, I think was sort of just the wrong approach. It set him up, I think, for failure because very few companies are going to exit more than your previous one. And I think, I don't want to talk about Slide and Google. Clearly very smart guys. Even though they weren't necessarily directly involved with the Google Plus successful launch, I think Google needed some social mojo and they probably thought they were getting it with Slide. I'm going to put this more in the context of who were the VCs that were basically giving these incentives to Max and his team to go after, slideshows and things like that. Like, he's a smart guy, accomplished. He could have probably done more interesting things with his time. So in the end, I think it's less about Google and Slide and more about VCs really setting the wrong kind of incentives and wrong targets for these very, very smart entrepreneurs that could change the world, but end up chasing these sort of crazy ideas that are just, gimmicks and Me Too's. Anyway, that's that. Let's now shift gears and talk about the question of the week. So first question, Emily, who works in PR, asks, I think you, basically you guys talked about HP. We talked about HP last week. And their head of communication was basically demoted. Not fired, but literally taken in the back, cut his knees off and said, you're going to work on this more junior stuff. The question by Emily is, did the right guy take the fall?
I think it's a little bit of yes and a little bit of no. If their communications guy was really worth his salt, he would have been able to, He would have known about this in advance. He would have had some better planning and better strategy in place to kind of deal with such a huge critical announcement. On the other hand, no, they didn't do the right thing because he didn't make this decision. He didn't create the communications crisis. He was just trying to deal with what was handed to him. That being said, the reason they say don't shoot the messenger is because we like to shoot messengers, and your PR communications guy is by definition the messenger.
Yeah, don't be a politician. It's got to be a yes or a no. This yes and no is not going to last very long. So, okay, your question.
Kelly from Milwaukee asks, AOL is rumored to be shopping itself. Is someone going to buy AOL?
I think if the price falls enough, someone is going to step up, which I know goes against what I said last week, which was like a lot of the big decision makers are going to remember the disastrous deal and all that with Time Warner. But I think if the price falls enough, I mean, AOL's dial-up business still generates a lot of money. Here's what I think was a bit of a tricky thing. I respect Arianna Huffington and I respect Michael Arrington. I think the price they bought Michael Arrington for, which was about rumored $30 million, is okay, some kind of a safety net there. Even though if Michael Arrington leaves, he's got a great team there, you know, how much value stays. The problem with Arianna Huffington, whom I respect just as much, I'm not trying to play it safe here, is that for $315 million, there's not much of a safety net, right? So I think the problem is not just that how do you justify that expense? It's that if anybody buys AOL, it would have been for the revenue that they get from the dial-up, which is shrinking. But guess what? It would have also been for all that cash on its balance sheet, which could have been used to do other things with. So by blowing at once the cash on their balance sheet, and buying a company at such a high multiple, meaning that they have to basically fabricate revenue for it, it's just very, very hard. Whatever appeal AOL had probably got lost a bit. So that's my verdict. I respect Tim Armstrong. I think all the people are doing their best job. It's just, you know, what was so appealing about them is no longer really there. They blew a lot of cash on these acquisitions. It was like people make fun of AOL, the old regime, buying Bebo for $850 million. You know, in some ways, the company has blown not as much money, but a hell of a lot of money on much smaller deals. And even if some of them are good, all that integration and all that indigestion is going to hurt them going forward. So the AOL story remains to be fully written, but that's just a tough situation to be in. That's been this week's show. Make sure to start voting for the Internet Company of the Year in 2011, and we'll catch you next week, same time, same place.